Hey Buffs, I'm Tara Kors. I'm the coordinator of Neighborhood Life and Off-Campus Housing and Neighborhood Relations, and I help our students navigate their off-campus living experience. With some help from my neighborhood ambassadors, who are peer mentors that live in the neighborhood surrounding campus, we're going to review a ton of the things that are important to know when you're living off campus. Boulder is definitely a vibrant town that tens of thousands of residents call their permanent home. And for our community members to have a good quality of life and cohabitate respectfully, there are a few key parts of the city code to keep in mind. Understanding these ordinances will not only help reduce your likelihood of getting tickets, but will also help you be a better neighbor. If you're venturing into off-campus living for the first time, you might be feeling a little excited, a little nervous to experience this new independent way of living, but something we think is important to remind you is that when you chose to come to CU Boulder, you also chose to be part of the Boulder community. The first ordinances we're going to review have to deal with noise, and noise is definitely one of the top reasons that students end up getting tickets, so these ones are really important to keep in mind when you're living off campus. The unreasonable noise ordinance helps to limit noise levels late in the evening and into the early morning from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Both amplified and unamplified noise that can be heard from more than 100 feet away can result in a citation. A noise ordinance that can impact daytime noise is called the disruption of the quiet enjoyment of the home, or DQE for short, because it's definitely a long one. We all have reasons that we would like to enjoy moments of quiet in our home. You might work from home, you might study from home, you might have neighbors that have young children, they like to put them down for a nap during the day. Maybe you would like a daytime nap uninterrupted. The DQE helps to maintain this enjoyment.
The most common reason students get this ticket is from loud music. An important thing to note is that you are required to receive a warning first, and those warnings last 90 days. If another violation occurs within those 90 days, you may be issued a ticket.
There's one more noise ordinance we'd like to take note of that deals with decibel levels. So in residential areas, your decibel levels cannot exceed 55 from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and 50 decibels from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Keep in mind that 50 decibels is right around conversational speech, so this can be easily exceeded by loud music or large gatherings.
Consider downloading a free decibel meter app. Measure your levels from the edge of your property so you can monitor your noise level appropriately.
As community members, it is our responsibility to make sure trash is properly disposed of or recycled so it can't get scattered by wind or animals through your neighborhood.
A common reason our students receive trash tickets is by not properly securing and disposing of their party-related trash. Code enforcement does patrol our city starting pretty early in the morning, around 7 a.m. So if you ever think, I'll just pick it up tomorrow, you might be waking up to a code enforcement officer writing you a citation. All fireworks in the city of Boulder are illegal without the proper license. This ordinance is written pretty broadly to say that all explosive material used for entertainment is not allowed, so it would include things like sparklers and snaps. However, the most common tickets are written for the bright and loud fireworks that cause a major disruption in the community. Please also remember that you can't guarantee safety when you're setting off fireworks within the city.
If you will be living in the Hill neighborhood or any neighborhood on the west side of Broadway, there are a few special things to keep in mind. You must have and properly use a bear resistance trash can. This is to help discourage bears from finding their next meal from our trash.
Fines for violating this ordinance are steep, $100 for your first offense and up to $500 for ongoing offenses. So please be sure to secure your trash appropriately.
Another Hill-specific ordinance forbids upholstered indoor furniture being left outside, in yards, or patios adjacent to yards. The ordinance comes with a lot of history, but in short, it aims to reduce the amount of couch burnings.
If your lease designates you as the party responsible for removing snow, it's important to remember that you have 24 hours after snow falling to shovel the sidewalk in front of your property as well as the path to your door.
If your lease designates you as the party responsible for lawn care, your weeds and grass cannot be taller than 12 inches.
Please note that regardless of your age, you are not allowed to have an open container of alcohol in public. An open container is going to be any container of alcohol that has been unsealed, undone, or opened in any manner, even if none of the alcohol was actually consumed.
It's important to remember that even if you see your peers walking around with open containers, it does not mean ordinances about consuming alcohol in public are not strictly enforced.
There are a number of misconceptions about possessing a fake ID that are important to know. First, it is not just the person possessing the fake ID that could be impacted. Any establishment that has a liquor license or a license to sell marijuana could temporarily or permanently lose their license, which would definitely impact their business. Also, while penalties can vary for the person ticketed for a fake ID, felony charges could be included. Another common misconception is that as soon as you turn 21, charges could not be presented. Please know that officers have up to 12 months to issue a fake ID charge, and your current age is not a factor, as the issue is not that you were trying to do something you were not old enough to do, but purely for the possession of a fraudulent identification.
A few things to remember about consuming recreational marijuana in Colorado. First, you must be 21 unless you have a medical marijuana license. Second, marijuana use must be done on a private property. And last, always be sure to check your lease for smoking and marijuana use regulations so you do not risk something like your deposit.
Trespassing can either be explicit, where maybe you've jumped a fence or been somewhere after posted hours of operation, or it can be implicit, which is when an invitation or permission to enter a house or business has been revoked, but ultimately you still enter.
We know there can be something tempting about being somewhere you're not supposed to be, but always remember that trespassing tickets, which sometimes can include felony charges, are not uncommon among college students.
There are a number of laws in Boulder that deal with various levels of fighting, starting off with ones that prohibit fighting words, something used to elicit a physical response out of somebody, all the way to assault, which is also a felony. Misconceptions about brawling, which is just two or more people fighting in public, can be common. It's important to remember that when it comes to brawling, it often does not matter who started the fight.
In Boulder city limits, it is also illegal to discharge a firearm, with a few exceptions. This ordinance is written broadly to include gas and mechanical guns, so would it also include discharging airsoft, BB guns, and paintball guns, so no target practice in your lawns, please.
A ticket that can combine a lot of the violations we talked about together is called a nuisance party ticket. If your house hosts a party with multiple violations, even if you were not present during the party, you could receive a nuisance party ticket that can include a fine of up to $1,000. This ticket can also put your house under review for nuisance abatement, which is a process the city has to mitigate issues at properties that on a recurring basis have caused a nuisance in Boulder neighborhoods.
There are a number of neighborhoods around campus that students often live in. Keep in mind that non-students live in each of these neighborhoods.
This neighborhood has many single-family detached homes. This neighborhood may not be ideal for students living on their own for the first time, as a detached home can come with more responsibilities than an apartment, with different maintenance requirements and security measures that rely on tenant use instead of automation or building management. This neighborhood is close to many restaurants options, as well as fun hiking trails.
This area to the east of campus features many apartment building options, with many being recently built or renovated. Because these apartments can come with many amenities, costs can sometimes be high, but the area still has a wide range of options.
Martin Acres, this area to the southeast of campus, has a high number of detached homes, as well as a diverse mix of undergrads, grads, and non-students. It's also conveniently located near the Denver-Boulder Turnpike, so you have easy travel towards Denver or the airport.
Goss Grove. This area north of campus is perfectly situated between many popular spots in Boulder and campus. the Hill, and downtown Boulder. This area has a diverse population of undergraduates, graduate students, and non-students. Includes a combination of detached homes as well as apartments and condos.
North Boulder properties in like the northern area of Boulder have a lot of variety in housing options as well as cost options. It can be typical to see lower prices when you move away from campus, such as the Hill, which are high areas of demand and in walking distance to campus.
An important step in your search for off-campus housing is actually getting your lease reviewed before signing.
Off-campus housing and neighborhood relations provides free legal advice on rental housing issues. Reach out to och@colorado.edu to get an appointment with our attorney, Bruce. It can be important to plan ahead since apartment sales can fill up fast. Parents and non-student tenants are always welcome to join the meetings with Bruce, but a student must always be present.
There are a number of things to keep in mind before signing and moving in, which can also be reviewed during a legal advice appointment. Here are a few key things to confirm with your potential landlord.
What type of lease is it? Is it a joint and several liability lease, which means that all tenants are jointly liable for the entire rent and all damages, or is it an individual liability lease, which means that tenants are only liable for their portion of the rent and damages to their rented room and typically common spaces? What is the security deposit amount owed and when is it due? What utilities are covered by tenants and which are covered in your rent? Also, when are they due and how are they paid? What damages are present before you move in? Is your landlord providing a check-in and check-out sheet? It's important to thoroughly document all damages you see before moving in with video or pictures and promptly send that to your landlord. Check what your lease says about renter's insurance. You can also decide on your own if it's something you want to add. Sometimes it can be important to include this. Renter's insurance is often something easily added to a current insurance policy that maybe a family member has.
An important thing to know while searching for housing is occupancy limits. Landlords are typically required to provide occupancy limits to their tenants. Units in Boulder can typically house 3 to 4 unrelated people, depending on the zone.
When moving in and out of your rental property, it is important to properly dispose or recycle any waste produced. Unwanted items like furniture or appliances should also be abandoned in alleyways or streets. They won't magically disappear. Someone, like a neighbor, will have to pay for them to be removed.
For more information on how to dispose, recycle, or donate leftover items from your move-in or move-out, reach out to the Environmental Center on campus.
Being a good neighbor is being a good buff. Here are a few tips to be a good neighbor in your off-campus community.
Get to know your neighbors and provide your contact information so your neighbors can stay in touch. We have contact forms on our website that you can print and provide to your friends and neighbors.
Let them know when your noise might impact them, and they can reach out if they need things turned down.
We have tons of party smart tips that can help in reducing your impact on your neighbors. If you host a party, a few tips to consider before hosting include:
Set up a party plan with your roommates so you can all agree on your guest list, when the party will end, and how to keep your noise impacts low, like keeping music inside.
Share the ordinances your guests should keep in mind, like parking rules in the area, noise ordinances, and any public orders that could impact your gathering size.
You can also register your off-campus parties through our office and the Boulder Police Department, so you can receive a 20-minute warning from Boulder PD if you received a noise complaint from one of your neighbors.
A few other things to keep in mind during your party to reduce your impact and likelihood of citations can include these.
Keeping people off roofs and balconies can be helpful in reducing your impact on your neighbors, as well as police attention if guests have been drinking. You may also violate your lease by being on the roof.
Always be sure your guests leave safely. If your guests consumed alcohol before or during your party, be sure, even if they walk home, that they make it to their destination. Neighbors have often experienced a party goer attempting to enter the wrong way home due to intoxication. We know a part of college is exploring your independence and experimenting with risk. It is important to keep in mind your impact on your community as you navigate this significant time of your life. As you learn to cohabitate with your neighbors, we hope you will be inclusive and respectful of their varying lifestyles.
We especially want those considering moving to the Hill neighborhood to take to heart a few things. First, the University Hill community is a historic neighborhood that, while houses many students today, has long been a neighborhood where faculty and staff have resided. You can see while walking the neighborhood that families have always found the Hill to be home, like the multiple primary and secondary schools in the area. I also want to take a moment to correct a misconception that we sometimes hear among our students who are considering moving to the Hill or currently reside on the Hill, which is that the Hill is a student-populated neighborhood and that noise from parties and music has always been commonplace. I want to correct this mainly because we will have many students who move to the area who are then surprised to learn that a family with young children are their next door neighbors. And then maybe get a few complaints and tickets throughout the semester because they were unaware that their neighborhood would have non-students living next door. So want to remind all of our students that when you are moving off campus, non-students will live in every neighborhood in Boulder, and we want to be sure that we are respecting our neighbors that have different lives than us and maybe have a different bedtime than we do. Something else we would like our students considering living on the Hill to take to heart is the impact that student behavior has had on long-term residents of the neighborhood. Many of these residents have had to make the very hard decision to sell their homes and move either out of Boulder or to another neighborhood in the city. This is a really hard decision for anyone to make, especially someone who has considered the Hill neighborhood to be their home for such a long period of time.
An example of a behavior we want to discourage for those moving off campus is, if my neighbors don't like my party noise, they should move out of the neighborhood. This creates an expectation that communities should adapt to disruptive behaviors. A more inclusive behavior is, I want to host a party. How can I do it so I reduce my impact on my community?
Here are a few scenarios we hope can help you try to relate and empathize to your non-student neighbors that may have been impacted by party behavior.
What would your reaction be if your parent or grandparent said they were going to sell their home of 25 plus years because of persistent noise from their ever-changing neighbors?
Sometimes putting our family members in place of the neighbors we might be having conflict with can help us create more empathy and understanding.
If you paid to go to the movies and felt forced to leave because others were being loud and disruptive, would that feel fair to you?
When we go to movies, theaters often establish rules so all moviegoers can have a good experience. If someone disrespected these rules and then expected you to leave if you were being impacted, you likely wouldn't find this request to be reasonable. Sometimes putting ourselves in a similar situation that our neighbors are experiencing can be helpful.
Do you and your roommates typically adapt to the habits of the messiest and noisiest roommate?
We can have expectations on our roommates since we occupy the same space. If you had a roommate that was always loud late into the evening or never picked up after themselves, you could ask them to show more respect to you and your other roommates. Think of your neighborhood as an extension of your residence. It is reasonable for your neighbors to want you to show respect to the community you reside in by following local ordinances that are put in place to help neighbors cohabitate. We communicate with lots of long-term residents in Boulder and often ask what is something that they want student neighbors to know. Here are a few things they've shared. Try not to speed in the neighborhood. Remember, many kiddos and animals live here too. Be respectful of loud noises late at night. Many families have early bedtimes. Remember that loud music carries. Please keep speakers inside. Get to know us. We're friendly. We like beer too. We can even serve as your family away from home. Exchange contact info with us. Invest in maintaining our neighborhood. Pick up trash when you see it, or offer to shovel snow for someone who can't. A couple of resources that can be helpful in your off-campus living experience include Student Legal Services, who provide legal advice and representation on a variety of legal topics, as well as our attorney in our office, Off-Campus Housing and Neighborhood Relations, who can provide free legal advice on rental housing issues, which was discussed earlier in this presentation.
We are happy to answer any questions you have about your off-campus living experience. Please feel free to reach us at och@colorado.edu. And remember, Sco Buffs!